Hi, how's it going? I'm David. Nice to meet you. Thanks for spending your Thursday with me. And the first 15 minutes aren't as exciting as the next hour or so. So we'll get started. So I was hired a few months ago. And then when I began working here, I was given the results of an audit that was done in 2013. And then in 2014, it was written out and documented to the district. So I'll begin by talking about that audit. Great. So this is a really wordy slide, but I'll take you through it. The audit was done by internal and external members, and maybe you've heard of it before if you've been around these meetings. The purpose of the audit was to facilitate a greater engagement in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's what STEM is, and to prepare our students with a strong background knowledge and skills in these areas. Additionally, a goal of the process was to discover how these experiences can be improved and increased. So that's basically the bulk of my job, is to look at this from an angle of STEM education and see how we can improve things that are going in this district, and namely how we can improve, preparation for students in going into post-secondary, and give them better experiences. And I'll take you through this actually, to hit those areas that audit from 2013 made very visible to the district. So I'm down at the second one now. The two of the questions that the audit tried to address was, how can science instruction from K through 12 integrate more authentic experimentation? How can it utilize the technology, which we're doing our best to utilize now with no problems, and provide deeper student engagement and maintain a more rigorous content in our curriculum? And additionally, the second question, I like this one, is the curriculum adequately developed and sequenced to ensure increasingly more in-depth knowledge and understanding, which is definitely a better question to tackle first before you go on to that first question. And then these little bullet points I pulled actually from the audit, and they're actually pretty interesting. These are the areas that the audit from, and again, this is internal and external people, that said that we needed to focus on here in the school district with great detail. The first one says teachers do not have a vertical view of the curriculum. The second one says that there's a lack of rigor in the middle level, and I think that's even though that's the smallest sentence there, that's probably the most important sentence. 3, appears to be a little integration of STEM education into subjects at the elementary level, and that will be a big topic today we discuss. Little collaboration and integration across course content. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Some departments did not meet regularly or appear to discuss curricula or instruction. Another big issue is collaboration. So there are some blocks to collaborating all the time, timing, scheduling issues, but there's ways around that, and there's things that we're doing right now to get around that issue. Outdated science kits at the elementary levels, believe it or not, that's a huge, well, not believe it or not, that's a big issue. No or little web-based sharing. We'll talk about that today, how we're addressing that issue. Minimal communication with the community, another big thing in STEM education. I mean, that's a huge thing. We should be, and that's not the PV school district community, that's the big community. And that's a big piece of this, and we'll see in a second. And the last thing, it says lack of equity for STEM opportunities across buildings. Some buildings are taking advantage of some opportunities in the community, some aren't, and there needs to be a liaison or some sort of consistency when it comes to opportunities in STEM education. All right, so I shouldn't assume this, but you do know what STEM education, what it stands for. It's a hot topic, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It all flows together. Maybe you've heard of STEAM before, or other acronyms where they're starting to put in more subjects into this whole equation. But for the most part, we need to better prepare students for STEM education because these are where the jobs are. So let me transition to this next slide. This is a lot of stuff on here, but it's 3 things, and it's 3 things that I think are the most important. You always hear statistics about what's going on with STEM education, and maybe we'll go over here. I know the webcam can't see me. But I'll start with this one here because you probably heard of this one. Is that projected? It says, for those that can't see on the internet, can they see this? Oh, okay. All right then. Well, here you go, internet. The projected percentage increase in STEM jobs over the next decade from 2010 to 2020. This is put out by the Department of Ed. When you compare all occupations where it says 14%, okay, there will be a 14% job increase of all occupations in this decade. But when it comes to isolated STEM jobs, you start to see this huge growth depending on the type of industry. And all the way down here where it says biomedical engineers, there's a 62% job growth. So these are where the jobs are going to be. And what this graph doesn't include are the jobs that aren't even really created yet, that don't even exist yet, which is cool to think about. But these students, these children of yours and the students here, some of them will have a job that doesn't even exist right now. We need to prepare them to get them ready for that. Because, and we'll go to the other graph here on the left, the three largest fields in science, which are engineering, biology, and computer science, over the course from the 1970s to 2010, which is where this graph ends, you can see the stagnating percentage of people that actually get bachelor's degrees in that field. So engineering, biology, and computer science, I don't know if you can see that this is 5% right here, and that's it. These are the largest three fields in science, and that's in the United States. We, as a nation, have the largest ratio in the world of non-STEM bachelor's degree granted people to STEM bachelor's degree granted people. Am I saying that right? Let me say that again. It's the ratio. It's a big stat. It's bigger than any other country in the nation. We produce, as a ratio, more non-STEM people out of college than STEM people. So it's a national issue. And feel free, if you have a question, you can just shout it out or type it on your webcam or whatever they're doing. Yeah. Do you need the mic? Does he need the mic?
That would be
You sure? I can be Phil Donahue.
On the first slide, yes. On the first slide, the audit feedback, did that just focus on the non-mathematics, the non-mathematic curricula? Okay. Okay.
So we're dealing with primarily science education.
Okay.
Too complex and too much to do well, if you will. So it was just the ST&E that was focused on.
Okay, so the mathematics, there's things going on in the mathematics that teach students around, let's say, in sixth grade, they can do math, they can do seventh grade math. And I just didn't know if we're looking to leverage some of those things that we do well with math and bring them over to STE, or are we too siloed in the curriculum? Here's science
Absolutely.
versus here's math.
We are.
Okay.
I would agree with that 100%. Which brings me to my next point, but you're absolutely right. We are, and I think that's a okay. That's fine, and that's an issue. And let me just go back here because that's my next slide too, and it's a great point. And another thing, and actually I wrote this out because this is something that really strikes a strong chord with me when I deal with these issues. And I'll read it to you. It says a total of 48%, this is in the nation, 48% of the people of bachelor's degree students, so they're in college, and 69% of associate's degree students who entered STEM-related fields, and this was a study that was done between 2003 and 2009, almost half of the people that are getting bachelor's degree in STEM fields left those fields. They didn't get a degree. They changed their major. More often than not, it was a non-STEM related field. And of those people that left, it's almost 70% of people getting an associate's degree too. And that's a lot of STEM related jobs too that are asking for just an associate's degree because there is a lack of people to fill those jobs. So, I mean, maybe these statistics are new to you because they're out there all the time, but it bears repeating that of those leavers, of the people that left, 1/2 of those leavers switched their major to a non-STEM field, I said that, and the other half just leave college. So there's an issue, obviously, with STEM education. It could be a competitive issue. It could be an issue with not preparing students for post-secondary education. It could be an issue with students thinking that they were going to go into a field that they didn't really have a good grasp of what it was, and then they got to college and realized, oh, that's not for me. So there's a lot of ways that you can look at this data, but it's an issue. It's a problem. It's a concern. So your point about integration. Let me look at this. Or let you look at that. I'll look at it with you. This is our STEM education plan. This is our continuum of STEM education, clockwise, David, not counterclockwise, of at PV School District. And I'm going to start up here today, and I'm going to talk about these 4 things. And don't worry, it gets fun and exciting a little bit later on. Yeah, we're getting to the fun stuff. We'll start off talking about how we're going to integrate inquiry-based instruction. What is that? There's maybe some misconceptions or a misunderstanding of what that is. We'll talk about how we'll go into promoting STEM career relevancy, which is a big thing also, especially at the younger years. It's not an internship, but it's actually how we can take people in STEM-related careers and incorporate them into the classroom as not only a resource, but maybe even a co-teacher in the classroom. So they can see how what they're learning in science or math is relevant to whatever career that our expert is coming in. And the next approach would be a transdisciplinary subject integration, which is a word that is, every time you type it, Microsoft says it's spelled incorrectly. But it's a thing in education, so it's got to be right. But it's not cross-disciplinary, it's transdisciplinary. So it's an integration of science, of inquiry science, into the subjects, especially starting through the K through 5 years. What can we do that's maybe not science content, but a science-related type of instruction in other types of things, fields like social studies and math. Transdisciplinary. And the thing that ties this all together, because it's all connected and you can't do one without the other, and that's the circle, is a professional learning community. So this addresses a lot of issues in the audit, namely people aren't meeting, people aren't discussing, people aren't collaborating. We're not getting together and solving issues that are coming up with our curriculum. That's what a professional learning community seeks to tackle. And this is another big hot topic in education. So we'll talk about all these four. So if you're ready, let's go. This is the moment you've been waiting for. All right, let's go. So I'll start off talking about curriculum. The big thing here is that the hot topic with curriculum in science is the next generation science standards. So if you've heard about them before, a group of experts, science experts from universities, from the STEM-related businesses or companies or technology companies got together on a national level and said, we need to narrow down what science needs to address in elementary, middle, and high school education. So yeah, it's one of those national science standards, but this one's done a little bit different than how it was done in the past. That we've actually gotten people that have good science input to put down things like national content, concepts and practices of science, and then cross-cutting themes in science. So the big question is, are we doing that here? Are we using the next generation science standards? If you've heard of this before and you were wondering this for a while, like next generation? Well, the answer to that question is no, we're not. We're not using it. Pennsylvania has not adapted the next generation science standards. So this question upstairs is, do we follow the next generation science standards or PA standards? We follow the PA standards. But this is like, I'm telling you this in case you're talking with somebody like a stranger and you're getting in a conversation about science and you're wondering why Pennsylvania doesn't follow the NGSS. Our science standards actually are very, very similar to the NGSS. Very, very similar. Frighteningly similar. So that's why it's not being addressed, if you've always wondered that. If not, then we'll go on to the next thing. But we can use both here at Perkiomen Valley. We can use the PA science standards for the bulk of our curriculum. It provides us with inquiry standards, which are scientific skills and practices. What do students need to know to think scientifically? It helps us with unifying themes of science, which is the progression of knowledge in science. So what are we going to do in first grade, and then how are we going to do that in second grade, and how does that build every year? And then finally, content-specific material. And I'll say that really quietly and quickly, and then go on to the next thing. Because, believe it or not, these two are the most important. It's good to know the content, but this is actually should be the emphasis when it comes to science. These are the things that you can do in other classes and integrate into other types of subjects. And the last thing, because you were wondering this all night long, can we use the next generation science standards? We can use them. They can help us also with progression of subjects through cross-cutting concepts, and I'll talk about those. And we can help to fill in any of the missing pieces. So this is our guide to deciding what material to keep in the curriculum, what material to change, and it drives our instruction. All right, so the proposal this coming year, what we're working through, is to take kindergarten through 5th grade and change it into a thematic approach. Rather than let's do this subject this grade, and then we'll go on to this subject. So let's do physical science, life science, earth and space. That shouldn't drive our progression. Our progression should be driven by a more thematic approach. These are the unifying themes, defined by Pennsylvania and then NGSS. And there are patterns, cause and effect, scale, proportion, quantity, energy and matter, stability and change. The idea here is to take a concept of science, introduce it at an early grade in one of these two themes, and then build on those themes, make it more sophisticated, more complex as you get out of 5th grade and go on to middle school or high school. And then it repeats itself. So the example I had was astronomy. When you first, because we do astronomy right now in almost every grade in elementary school. When you first learn about astronomy, you learn about I should be more interactive. What do you learn about when you first learn about astronomy? Remember when you were in kindergarten? What's the first thing? What would be the first thing you think you would learn about? Constellations. Well, actually, even before constellations. The sun, moon, and earth system. So even before you get out to that, because that's a bigger concept. That's down here. But the sun, moon, and earth system is a basic astronomy concept. So you look for patterns in the nighttime sky. What's the pattern with the sun? Why does it keep coming around every day? Why does it go away at night? You look for cause and effect. What does the sun cause on the surface of the earth? And what does that affect? It's basic concepts. Then you revisit those concepts another year, and then the next year, and then you build on it. What's the scale of the sun? How big is it? What's the size of it? How about systems, solar systems, as you get bigger and bigger? Energy and matter. How does the sun produce energy? What is energy? That's a good question. What is energy? What is energy? That's a good question. I could talk about that all night. What is it? And matter. How does the sun produce energy? Or does it produce energy? Nothing produces energy, right? What's the structure and function of something in science? And you get into bigger concepts like the constellations. And then you start over again. You identify the smaller themes and you build bigger progression through these unifying themes of science. That's a small example, but that's kind of where we're going with science. We're looking at it through that lens, rather than just saying, well, we're going to do life science this year, and then we're going to do physical science next year. Let's start at the basics. So these cross-cutting themes, these thematic approach, and by the way, I'm using these terms interchangeably because they're the same thing. This is the Pennsylvania way of saying it. This is the national way of saying it. But these cross-cutting concepts or themes can help students better understand core ideas in science and engineering. Repetition in different contexts will be necessary to build that familiarness of these cross-cutting concepts, and then they should help grow in complexity and sophistication across the grades. It's going to help build what science and engineering is. That's the curriculum approach. Did that take too long? Oh my goodness, okay. That's just what's driving us to decide what comes after what. All right, with me so far? You're good? All right, so I'll show you this. This is nitty-gritty stuff. This is the difference. So this is actually what we're working on right now. And it's the difference between the before and the after. So let me get this done and out of the way before we get to the interesting stuff, unless this is already interesting. No, I'm sorry. But let's get this out of the way. But this is how we're going to do it. We're going to turn our curriculum maps that we currently have, which are here on the left. They're the PDF. They have the topic. They have maybe an essential question and some competencies. We're turning that PDF into a reference material through a spreadsheet like this. You're like, oh, that's so exciting. But this is important because curriculum should be a reference, and it should be a one-stop shop. If a teacher in this district wants to know, what should I be teaching? What's the eligible content? What's the standard? This is what it's going to look like, and it's massive. So at the bottom here, there's tabs here where any teacher can open up this and go from first grade, second grade. Maybe I teach second grade, but I want to know what they're doing in first grade. That's vertical alignment, which was also in the audit. Quick and easy vertical alignment. They want to know what other teachers are doing, horizontal alignment. They can follow through here, and I know you can't see this, but it says essential questions, big ideas, concepts, competencies. It keeps going on with vocabulary. It's got the written out standard, not the standard code. I don't need, they put it in code. I don't know what code means. Write out the standard, and they have the eligible content that's coming from the state. So first things first, there's got to be a reference material. Vertical and horizontal alignment, standards and content aligned. We got that done. It's a living document. So what this means is it's shared through a Google Drive. If there's edits or any changes to it, everybody has access to the up-to-date changes. Hopefully there's no change. Oh, there's always going to be changes. And then there's an emphasis on inquiry. The first thing here is you're actually looking at part of grade 3 science right now. You can't even see the content. The content's down here. You have to scroll down. This is inquiry right here. And these are the unifying themes in that grade. This needs to be the emphasis in every grade. Use content to teach inquiry. Use the themes to progress through that content. But you can't teach content in science without teaching it through the vein of some inquiry competency. So that's that. That's what we're working on. Now the fun stuff. How do we teach it? So this is the instructional part. This is the inquiry-based instruction. So let's start at the very, very young grades. Let's just do it. And then that way we can build science through the years. Instead of just waiting until we think a child is ready to understand the scientific process, hypothesis, test, experiment, collect data, analyze that data, get a conclusion. Maybe that's a lot. Maybe they don't fully grasp what the whole scientific process is. We can scaffold that so a young student can do that. And they can do science now regardless of what grade they're in. And this is one of those instructional techniques. And I like this technique because you can do it all the way up into middle school. And I don't know if you've noticed up here, you probably can't see that. I have a little elementary and middle school sign. So that's what I'm addressing right now. So even though this is scaffolded for the youngest learner, you can still use this technique in middle school. And then from there, build it into the bigger scientific process. But it's called CER, Claims, Evidence, Reasoning. So it's been kicking around for a while. It's a very widely used instructional practice in the United States. We need to put this into the curriculum ASAP so our younger students are more scientifically thinking, or they're scientifically thinking people at a much, much younger age. Start them young. So what is it? It's a method of teaching science inquiry. It's easily adaptable, easily applicable. I can do it with anything. Anything. Provides scaffolding to ensure responses are thorough and well supported. If you don't know what scaffolding, you know what scaffolding is. But in education, it's so that we can still teach the same content at the same level. It's an instructional practice that helps out all students. It's a way of differentiating instruction. We're explaining scientific concepts in a more cohesive way, and then the students return that back and they explain science in a more cohesive way. So we'll do an activity with this. And then while we're doing this activity, we want to think about inquiry concepts. All right, so the inquiry concepts, and I'll put this back up again, but 8 things defined by Pennsylvania and the Next Generation Science Standards that students should be doing in a science classroom, or also maybe a math classroom or a social studies classroom. Asking questions, developing models. I'll leave this up here in a second. You don't have to. We can go do the next thing. All right, so we'll come back to this. So this is I hope this works. I hope this sounds ready to go. This is a scientifically thinking child. I think we'll leave it at that. Are you ready? I don't know if I can do that with this. Nope, no sound.
It's not on here.
Let me check and see if my volume's not muted on the computer. That's on. Oh, it's really low.
There we go.
There we go.
I have evidence that proves my dad's a space alien. He speaks a weird language.
You want to restart that? That's the important part. That first few seconds are really important, so we'll go back. Sorry, it's 30 seconds.
He speaks a weird language. He drinks green stuff. He says he's from Albuquerque. I'm not buying it. I mean, just look at it. And one more thing. He has a spaceship.
That's a car commercial. But the very opening line she says is she makes a claim. She says, I have evidence that my dad is a space alien. So you want to play it again? I don't catch that again. I have evidence, and then listen to the evidence that she cites.
It's a weird language. He drinks green stuff. He says he's from Albuquerque. I'm not buying it. I mean, just look at him. And one more thing. He has a spaceship. The evidence doesn't lie. My dad's an alien.
The highly advanced Audi A6.
You got the spaceship. All right. So she makes claims. Now, there's an important part that's missing here, but it's a good start that she makes some big claim and she backs it up with evidence. So that's the start too. There we go. Our framework, our CER framework. I'm going to leave this up. I'm not going to read it to you because we're going to do an activity where we're going to make a claim, we're going to get evidence. But the big piece that's missing here was the reasoning piece. So if you had that student in class, you would say, that's a good start. Now let's go back to that evidence and tie it to the claim for a second there. Especially when she said he's from Albuquerque. Let's talk about Albuquerque and tie, why does Albuquerque producing aliens? So that's how you tie evidence to a claim. Now it's absurd, but this is a scientifically thinking child. So the claim, the evidence, and the reasoning. I'll leave this up here. We want to do an activity. And in order to do this activity, you need a CER worksheet. So I'm going to pass these out. This will be great. You'll love this. This is the reason why you came here tonight. Take one. Does everybody have a writing utensil? You want to do it too? I'll just give it to everybody. So the first thing on here, it says it's an observation. What did you observe? In a minute, I'm going to give you a guiding question. It says at the very top of the bullet point, it says most labs originate with a guiding question. After you get that guiding question, you have to make a claim. It might take you a while to make that claim. This is a thinking activity, so it might take a while. But once you make that claim, you have to gather evidence. And I'll leave this up here, like I said. It's sufficient and relevant to the claim. It can come from a group. You can get quantitative, qualitative evidence. And it's important to have numerous pieces of evidence. So we do want 3 pieces of evidence that support your claim. Now here's your thing. Here's your task. There's a beginner's and an expert mode to this. I'm just going to go right to the expert mode. I'm going to put a cube on your desk, on your table. The one rule is you can't touch the cube, or you're out of the district. So I made some good quality ones. I'm going to give you the top quality cubes. So I made a cube. You can't touch it. I'm giving you a top quality cube. There you go. Okay. Can't touch it. There we go. And one over there. There you go. Can't touch that cube. So sorry. You want the easier one? Here, I'll give you the easier one. The easier one. So your guiding question is very easy. What's on the bottom? I want you to figure out what's on the bottom. You can't touch the cube. Don't touch the cube. Can't touch the cube. But your guiding question is what's on the bottom. So you list some observations, and then when you're ready, if you can do it, make a claim. You showing the internet? Yeah. I don't know if I have a copy readily available. I should put it on the Show a cube. You can't show them the bottom though. There you go. You can see a cube, but you can't show the bottom. You can turn. Okay. This is hello internet. This is the cube. That's one side. Is it backwards? Are they seeing it backwards?
They can see it.
Okay. That's another side of the cube. Here's one side, and I'll show you the top. And the idea is to use your claim evidence reasoning worksheet to make a claim about what's on the bottom of the cube, which you can't see, which I'm concealing from you. Okay? Going out to a lot of people. 17 people. Wow.
Has 7. So that's it's the number of letters.
Jump in there.
3, 4.
Are you doing it too?
Yes. Finish my observation. Name of some person,
Uh-huh.
number of characters in the name, and number of vowels in the name.
So do you have a claim about what's in the bottom? You have no idea?
Would be a name and the rightmost.
You have nothing. I mean, there's no like. You don't. It's not like a turkey on the bottom. It follows the pattern.
Also, it would be, okay, let me see. There is,
Can I put the mic on you so the internet can hear you reason?
4, 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe a name with 8 characters or 2 characters in it. Or, and then maybe it has 5 vowels, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 3. I can't say how many vowels that will have. 1 maybe. I mean, the number here at the corner, left bottom says number of vowels in the name. It's a name, and this says number of characters in the name.
Yeah. So I'm going back to even before I get them. Let me go back to the. There you go. So the thematic approach. So we're doing an activity now. It's not content specific, but you're identifying patterns. What else are we looking at? Maybe structure and function at a very basic level. But definitely it would be a pattern-based thematic approach to science. And then, like, you know, without actually finishing it and doing it. And then the goal now would be, oops, there you go. Did we hit those inquiry points by doing an activity like this? So the next step would be a content-specific type activity, but this is the type of inquiry we want to do with students.
I want to know, why are we doing this?
What's
Why
that?
are we doing this activity?
To introduce you to inquiry concepts.
Why would parents need to know what inquiry concept?
Do they know already? I don't know. I think that if you want to have a good critically thinking student, especially at younger grades, that we need to do activities with them, even if it's something as simple as this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Why do I need to do activities?
Okay.
In other words, you're already full.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to know how you're going to fit 2 science classes at each high school year.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I want to know how you're going to fit 2. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
How you're going to fit 2 high school classes? 4 science classes in a high school is not enough science.
In other words, he's saying he already bought the farm. Now he wants
Okay.
to know how are we going to
No,
do it.
good. Okay, great.
My daughter
We'll get to
is
that.
doing biomedical engineering, so
Okay.
she was at Penn State doing biomedical engineering, so I buy that. Yes.
All right. Well, we can talk about that, and I get to the high school portion after
4
that.
science classes to me is not that enough science. I mean, I have people from Singapore, Hong Kong, India, China, Australia, even Germany, and they do a lot more science than we do here.
Mhm.
4 science is not enough science.
I agree. So is your question about a requirement or just offering more science classes?
Allowing in the schedule time. Science scheduling at most school districts is difficult because it has that extra laboratory component hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, okay, I want to take Spanish and I'll take instead another science.
Mhm.
Spanish is, you require 6 periods. Science requires 7 periods. So how are you going to fit into a schedule? So I don't have a solution to that problem. I've been thinking for almost 3 weeks now, and I cannot come up with a suggestion.
I mean, there are things to talk about, things that you can do to allow for more science in the
When
schedule.
you do, look, new AP physics is physics 1, physics 2. 2 years committed to that. That means two credits for physics.
Yes.
Chemistry at PV, they say you need honors chemistry and AP chemistry. So that means another 2 science, so 2 chemistry, 2 physics. When are you going to do biology? When are you going to do environmental science? You need a lot more science options.
Yes. I will absolutely talk about that, and I have a slide for that. And I agree with you. All right.
I'm sorry.
But you're sold? Okay. We're working our way up.
Yeah, I mean, was I on the right path? Number of characters, vowels?
No cheating.
Yeah, no, you're
Teacher's
fine.
pet. Dr. Johnson, we do have a question.
Mhm.
How much time during the course of a lesson would you allow for the worksheet to be completed?
How much time in the course of the lesson? Well, I think if you were doing this in the Allen, they can hear me answer this question.
They can hear you.
Okay, hope it's on. Now, in an elementary setting, we currently have science classes that are kind of placed in with social studies. So what we're dealing with now is a lack of time for science. So if I understand this question correctly, this type of activity would take, I would hope, about 45 minutes to an hour to really, at least that much, to go through the process of introducing a concept, introducing some sort of guiding question, allowing students to work out a claim, gather evidence, and collect data. Now, if it's something that's a laboratory-based, you would need more time, and in the high school, you do have more times for labs, but this would be a full class period. If that answers the question correctly? That's perfect, thanks. Okay. Oh, great. You sure? Yeah, thanks. Okay. That's neat. I just talked to the internet.
Like, they both start with
Yeah.
L, right? But they're not the same word.
Should I keep going? Are you good? Okay. All right. Well, because of time, and I know we want to get to bigger topics with later grade topics, but because of time, I'll just briefly go over this activity. So yeah, I was trying to sell you on inquiry, and I don't know if it was a tough sell or not, but the idea here is that next step would be, can we make this a content relevant exercise? And absolutely, there's definitely things that you can do. This isn't content driven, but it introduces this idea of inquiry. Now, did we, and I have this inquiry concepts, did we ask questions and define problems in your group? Okay, some nods. Did we develop and use models? Maybe your claim is a model of what you think's on the bottom. Did you plan and carry out any investigations? Okay, all right. Did we analyze and interpret data? Oh, okay, great. Use mathematics and computational thinking? Construct explanations and design solutions? Wow. Did we engage in argument? Yeah, okay. All right. And did you evaluate, obtain, and communicate information to each other? So that's, I mean, okay, that's great. Some of these maybe not as much as others, and it's important that we don't spread ourselves out too thin with inquiry. And maybe you know an activity that just takes advantage of some of these rather than all would be more beneficial. But I don't know. It's a teacher's instructional freedom. So this slide. Here we go. The idea of integrating CER into the younger grades. Here's what we're looking for. It follows the scientific process, but it does it in a way that scaffolds it to all learners. If you take what do you know, combine how do you know it with the evidence, and then why does your evidence support the claim, which would be the last step, the reasoning step, which we could go over if we had more time, you get a good explanation. And as the years go on with this instructional practice, the idea is to make more cohesive explanations of some sort of scientific concept that's going on. So in this case, you have reason to believe that the bottom of the cube says what? And what are the numbers at the top and the bottom? And what color is it? Okay. Just because of what we're doing tonight, you can look at the bottom now. I don't know if I'd let you look at the bottom, but you can look at the bottom and see. Sometimes you spell Francine with an I.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, so question from the internet.
Is the claim always based solely on observation, or can it be prior knowledge?
You can
Repeat that, and then.
Hello? Oh, sorry. Say the question again.
The question is the claim always based solely on observation, or can it be prior knowledge?
It can absolutely be prior knowledge. Prior knowledge is part of the observations that you have. I mean, it's definitely part of it. So, I mean, you could say, I believe that the bottom of this cube is this name because I've done this activity before. You know, even something as simple as that, but something that's content related. Prior knowledge is absolutely important, and that goes with the progression of scientific themes. So we want you to bring prior knowledge and prior research into your claim, not just what you're observing now. Does that answer your question? That's good. But absolutely. Good question, Internet.
That's an important point because in today's curriculum, you go earth science, physical science. There's not necessarily the linkage with prior knowledge to each one of those topics.
The question was that we have a segmented, or we have a,
because of the segmentation, there's
doesn't
that
spiral.
reset, correct. So in this model,
where are the links? Even if we did that forever and we always did physical life and
Right.
Earth and space, where are the links? Where is it? Hello. Oh. Those are the links.
they're not necessarily in today's world, right? We're talking today's world. The way science is today in the district,
Yes.
those links aren't necessarily emphasized. So when a child goes from first grade to second grade, it's a reset for the science class because what they're learning is different, a different topic. In this model, the scaffolding is the build. That's why it's important. Previous knowledge should be used, should be encouraged, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is to use the theme and inquiry to link
Correct.
it and use the instructional practices to link it. Yeah. And then ideally, I mean, if we can make connections to physical and life science, I mean, physical science, a study of energy, definitely applies to life science. So whenever we're making those content area connections too.
Right, it does in today's, but that's not occurring today. Is what I'm saying. In today's world, the kids constantly reset to zero.
Yes.
That constantly makes them feel as though what I learned last year really. Once I get my final and I'm done my fourth quarter, I'm done.
Yes.
That's bad.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I support what you're doing.
For your question. Thank you. All right. So let me talk about some other brief things that we're going still in the continuum before we jump into the big high school topic, and that's the development of a professional learning community. You can't really do STEM education. You can't have that collaborative approach, and we can't help all the teachers if we don't fall into a professional learning community. So there's two parts to this. One is kind of an obvious part, and then one is that philosophical part to a professional learning community. Can we get all our educators together and collaborate on big issues that go beyond instructional practice too? Maybe it's curriculum, maybe it's more of an operational issue. So we want to build a culture of sharing and collaboration. How do you do that when there's no time to meet? That was in the audit. They don't meet. Well, there's no time to meet. We can use the the resources that we have to connect people. Even if it's something through a shared Google Drive where we're collaborating with live documents, we're editing documents, we're sharing things, or we're using our technology to have conferences between buildings. Because one of the big issues with elementary schools is that there's 4 of them. We don't know what anybody else is doing because we're not communicating to one another. So we have some sort of actual documentation share. We have webcam conferences that we're working on it. We're getting better at it. And then the last thing, this would be the step 3 piece, is collaborative applications for something, especially something like data collection. If we're doing a scientific lesson and we're communicating with our own wireless infrastructure, there's iPads in the classroom, there's apps for the iPads that take real-time data. Can we share that data with other classes and simultaneously do a scientific experiment? That's part of the infrastructure question. But the more comfortable we get with using technology, the more we can answer questions that are big issues. What do we want each student to learn? How will we know when each student has learned it? And how do we respond when a student experiences difficulty in learning? If we're not talking to one another outside of the teacher teaches right next to me, it's going to be very difficult to answer these questions. And then when we do come together the few times in a year, it's maybe not as cohesive because I'm off doing my own thing in my own little world. Believe it or not, teaching is a very, very lonely job. Outside of the students that are keeping you company, you're in your own world doing your own thing. So if you're communicating better with teachers, even if it's through a quick webcam, a Google Hangout, sharing documents, it's not as lonely anymore. So I mean, some of you are teachers. All right, so a culture of collaboration that gives more opportunities to teachers to develop solutions to issues and build new instructional ideas. That's a professional learning community. Okay, so that's one other thing we're trying to build. That's a big topic, and it's only on one slide. It's a huge topic. But you want to go on to the next thing. Last thing before we get to the high school. This is the last thing. I like this one. This one's pretty cool. And that's that community development. How are we taking in STEM resources in our area and connecting them to students in this building? This is what STEM education is about. How are we doing this? We're not doing this. We're going to do this. And it's easy to do. And asset mapping is the way to do it. It's the step one to do it. So let's connect STEM resource providers to science education and students at PVSD. Why? Well, we addressed this big issue with STEM education before, that students are dropping out of STEM careers. Students are having difficulty at college. Maybe they're not going into college with a good understanding of what their career they want to do, or maybe they're going into college and they're finding something new in STEM, but they had no access to it in high school or middle school or elementary school. So, maybe it would have been better if they had a better idea years and years before. So the idea here is to create a database, market ourselves to these resources, these community organizations, these associations, these companies in our area. We live in a wealth of technology companies. Get context, get resources, database the availabilities, the correlation of what they do to what subject we do. Build communication and have these individuals collaborate better with our teachers. Step one is to put something out there on a website, pvsd.org/STEM. Anybody can go to that has a company that or deals with something with STEM in general, not just STEM education, and database this. Get everybody that we have in our area to buy in, to make a partnership with us, maybe a loose partnership at first. And then once they say, hey, I'm interested in joining or helping you guys out or supplying our resources, then we'll make the contacts. Go to their, I can go and talk with them, build a relationship with them, and then sit down and say, hey, your company correlates really well with a life science either lesson or grade that we do, even if it's elementary school. What resources do you have? Would you like to come in and not lecture? No, don't lecture. What I'm doing now, don't do that. But come in and actually co-teach with one of our teachers. You have good experience. You know more about this subject matter. Wouldn't it be neat, even if a 4th or 5th grader, let alone middle school and high school student, can actually see somebody that does this career, ask them questions, but don't lecture. I don't think lecture. They have career day for that kind of stuff. Bring in your resources and work with us. Do things with us. Co-teach with us. And start that young also. And then we build those connections for later on in the high school, for maybe something like an internship possibility. Or maybe it's something like a job shadow. But they start early, they know what that STEM career is, and they have a better idea of what they're getting themselves into in post-secondary education. So this is the first step. Any partners with us, we'll make note of that on our map. We'll say these are the businesses or organizations in our area that partner with us at Perkiomen Valley. Free publicity, maybe it's good PR. It's outreach that they probably already do, but I don't know. If I was in an office job, and I had the opportunity to spend a day at a school to work with kids, I'd jump at the chance. All right, so let's go to the high school now. So let's talk about the high school. So this is our current science progression at the high school. So our big topics. And at the top here in this flow chart is our recommended progression. 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. We go from Earth and Space Science to biology, which is a keystone course, which means at the end of biology, they need to take and pass a keystone exam in order to graduate. Then they go on to chemistry and physics. The arrows represent a prerequisite. So if you wanted to take an environmental science, you need biology. If you wanted to take AP chemistry, you need chemistry. And if you wanted to go through the physics progression, you would need both chemistry and physics. So I'll put this up here, and I know you probably have questions about the high school progression. Please ask questions. But the reason I put this up here is to emphasize, at this point, biology. Because biology is the one that the state says that you need to take this course and pass an exam in order for you to graduate. And if you cannot pass this exam, you cannot graduate from high school. So this is, right now, this is our emphasis. And if a student does not pass this exam, we need to remediate them. And the next slides go on to how we're going to remediate them. Some pretty neat and some exciting things I'm going to try out that we're doing this because the state says you got to remediate them. But before I go on to this, any big questions, burning questions about the progression? Yeah. I can. Mm-hmm. Can I repeat this question for the internet? I'm sorry, because it's been eerily quiet to them. So the question was, can you test out of biology? Can you take the exam and just test out? Can you skip? Can you test out of the Keystone exam? Okay.
All students will have to take the Keystone exam and pass the Keystone exam. Only if you were advanced on the 8th grade science PSSA.
Question?
Yeah, I had a little experience with my daughter. She came into high school. Instead of taking biology her sophomore year, she took chemistry. Okay? Then she became a dual-enrolled student, kind of went on to take some onco stuff, but she still had to take the Keystone exam, but she never had biology. So obviously the first time through, she missed it by 3 points or whatever. So, and then she just took it again her senior year, so she made it because she had biology, obviously in the college. But is there a reason why biology can't be done in the 9th grade, since it's a Keystone exam?
That was a no. Okay.
Because I think since going forward, the Keystone's a requirement for biology versus what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
That would ensure everybody's taking it in 9th grade, because I think as you hit the high school, you're moving all around in your science requirements based on interests, future, etc. Just a thought and an observation.
So, your thought is for a student to be advised that if they are somebody that's interested in taking a lot of science courses, take this course.
I think it should be for everybody.
Everybody.
I don't think Earth and Space Science, only because of the Keystone requirement.
Yes.
That way, all the students in the district have biology as a 9th grade. And then they can move around if they're, chemistry, physics, AP biology can focus in after they take then they can move the last 3 years, but they got that biology out of the way.
So this is an issue that many districts in Pennsylvania are working through now, that there are a lot of districts that have a 9th grade and then a 10th grade progression like this, and there are students that are opting to take this in 9th grade. They feel that they're ready for biology. There may be students that say that they're not ready for the concepts of biology yet, so they'd rather stick with something a little bit more applicable.
Yeah, but if we're, based on your earlier discussion, if we're introducing them biology concepts in the elementary school level, in the middle school level, such as art. In art, everybody, they draw flowers. Well, start with a seed in the art class and watch the seed grow and capture it. You know what I'm saying? And just conceptually, there you go.
Yeah.
So if you're introducing those concepts and taking those concepts down that way, they should be ready for biology in 9th grade. Just an observation.
I would agree. All right, here we go.
Okay. Well, I think it's unfortunate that Pennsylvania came up with this biology requirement, Because if you want to become an engineer, electrical, mechanical, computer science.
Say that again in the mic.
So if you want to do electrical, mechanical, civil, any of the engineering, computer science, biology is useless. And plus, you do need physics and chemistry. Given that most schools, unfortunately in this country, provide only one slot for science a year. That's not enough science. So with 4 science classes, with AP Physics 1 and 2, 2 are gone. Honors Chemistry and AP Chemistry, 2 are gone. You have used up your science quota. We are focusing too much on non-science subject. We have 4 social studies classes in PV. State says only 3 are required. Maybe school should look into it, making more science slots available and less social sciences.
Should we point out that the science and math requirement, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you need 7 credits of science and math to graduate, but there is no requirement on how you balance that.
And I would say 7 is not enough.
Okay. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, science is not enough. I would say you need 1.5 times what you require for English for science, 1.5 times what you require for English for math. So if you require 4 for English, you need between math and science, my older one is just started college this semester, and we learned a lot of tough lessons because, and my younger one just starts high school. So we don't want to make a mistake with the second one.
But it's what we choose to do.
Again, the scheduling of science. Science is the only class that requires 7 periods for the cycle. Everything else is 6. So you cannot just say, I will not take the 3rd language, world language, in 11th grade. Instead, I'll take 2nd science. Scheduling becomes a problem. Now, I have no solution to offer how to do that. I looked at what neighboring schools have done. For example, environment science in this school district requires 7 periods. In Springford, 6 is enough. So you may want to look into that. Maybe you can offer science as half credit. You can do half credit of environmental science, only 3 cycles per period. Then you can squeeze in.
So that solution is to just diversify your science more, then, right?
Of more offering of science, and maybe, and I mean, I'm talking to Ms. Russell about this. School district need to look at why do we need 4 social studies as a graduation required? Make it optional. People who wants to become political science, journalism, let them take 4 classes in social studies and only 6 in math and science, or 7 in math and science. But for people who want to pursue medical, technology, science, career, 3 social studies should be enough.
I'm a little biased, but I really.
You learn about U.S. history, world history, and U.S. government. That should be it. But I'll take that separately because okay, that's. Three. State says 3. Springford says 3. We said 3.
So we do have a question from the webinar.
Okay.
Can someone explain why chemistry is a prerequisite for physics? Many students find that requirement limiting in scheduling. It makes it very difficult to take more than 4 sciences for those who would like to. I'm not sure who wants to field that question, but I'll pass the mic to whomever would like to.
We're getting the mic over.
The question is an interesting one, and I think one that we actually talked about prior to the meeting. I would have to check the College Board's recommendations for that AP Physics course. But I think we, as a group, posed a very similar question, wondering why the requirement or prerequisite for chemistry. And I think it's something we need to look into, and whether or not the College Board requires that, or that's just something we require. Asana, I don't have a definite answer, but I can follow up in the notes that in turn follow up to the meeting.
wrapping around to, I think, what you posed earlier is how to get most of your kids through biology keystones, which I think we started a while ago. I'll pull it back in there. Right now you have an Earth and Space Science course in 9th grade, and the real question is why. It's slowing down. It's boggling up, as you said before, kids who want to advance into sciences and be able to get into an AP Physics course and an AP Chemistry course. If you haven't taken the Earth Science course in 9th grade, that's crippling them. I mean, the other schools around the districts have gotten rid of that. The other thing is you're not doing anything that's helping out your biology course that's now in 10th grade. So if you want to not run biology in 9th grade, which is an option, you probably should put together a course in 9th grade that helps kids get ready for biology, because you're trying to get the biology keystones in them. One option of that would be chemistry, because there's a ton of chemistry in biology, and especially on those keystones. So that's a total, I mean, we just threw that whole thing off the board and started over, and I know that would be a radical thing to do, but if you really want to say, your biggest problem right now is the Earth and Space in 9th grade. I think there's no reason that course should be there, and it needs to go. Now, what's it replaced by and how you shift things, you can look into it. I mean, if you talk about the history of why biology and chemistry and physics are in that order, it's because of that was the alphabetical order at 1902. So that's how we got here. So if you talk about what makes sense and what you actually need a lot of chemistry to do biology well. Now, a chemistry course in 11th grade and a chemistry course in 9th grade are going to be at a different rigor, obviously. But they should both be able to prepare a kid for AP chemistry, especially if he takes it after a biology course. But if you're looking at getting all your kids through, and you want to prep those kids, a chemistry course or some other course, and then there's the other way you could go is split and have half your kids take biology in 9th grade and another half of kids, based on math levels or whatever, takes a environmental science course that preps them for the biology course. All options to go with, but the Earth and Space has pretty much got to go.
I mean, this is an ongoing discussion of how to deal with this, and a lot of what you said has actually been discussed and is in talks right now. But it's great to hear your input. Do you have a question?
So you know, the webinar said excellent suggestions by some speakers, and colleges do not even count Earth and Space as a zero time. Opinion of the computer.
Just provide an explanation for why Earth Space Science is in the sequence at the high school. In the past, when our students were required to take the 11th grade science PSSA, Earth Science was a strand of that PSSA. So it provided the background knowledge that our students needed, and it met the standards from that strand. So that's why it's there. That's changed now. So the suggestion or the question about whether or not we need Earth Space Science or our students need that is a meaningful one at this point in time.
Our teacher of the year is an Earth and Space Science teacher, Dr. Roberta Paul, and I would say she was the single most influential teacher one of my children has had. So, you know, it's not all bad. I don't want to bash it totally. The content is important, so whether it can be moved forward to 8th grade, that's reasonable. Is there an option for kids to choose their own sequence? Like if you think you're going to be a chemical engineer, could you choose the sequence you want? I mean, a lot of our kids do that in some ways. Like you have kids that don't take bio till senior year. Are you still going to allow that? Like some of your advanced kids don't take AP Bio till senior year, and then they're taking the Keystone just before they graduate. Is that right? Oh, they do. So no longer can a kid put Bio off till senior year? Okay, I didn't know that. That's happened prior to this year, right? Sorry, yeah, we were, sorry, we're,
Just to piggyback on the requirement of chemistry before physics, I just want to also add that I don't really understand why chemistry is required before AP chemistry. As far as I understand, that is not a college board requirement. And I definitely know of other high schools where a student that wants to take chemistry can choose whether they take honors chemistry or AP chemistry. So by always having these requirements of chemistry before AP chemistry, and there was a time where we had to have biology before AP biology, you know, there's just no way you can fit these classes in.
yeah.
One of the AP teacher at PV answered the question. He said AP chemistry is one of the toughest AP exam, and it requires 2 years of preparation. 1 year is not enough. And it's true about the physics. The AP board agreed, and they broke physics into physics 1 and physics 2. I won't be surprised if 2 or 3 years down the road they do the same thing for chemistry. Chemistry is indeed a lot of material to be covered in 1 year. But what we can do is what Springford is doing. They are offering multiple streams. Here we are talking about 3 streams. They are offering 5 or 6 streams. In one of the stream, they are allowing students or facilitating students to take 2 sciences every year. That means you will have possibility of taking 8 sciences. But that is they are facilitating. Here, it's a PV, it's possible, but with a constraint of your schedule, and it may work, may not. If you make it a point, say that is a valid stream, 2 sciences are possible, that would be a big improvement.
Just to add to that, some context to the question earlier, we have the College Board requirements that AP chemistry requires a year of chemistry, and I believe algebra 2. AP physics does not require, did I say that right? Does not require physics. I'm sorry, AP physics does not require chemistry. Get that right. And then AP biology requires successfully completed high school courses in biology and chemistry.
That's not what we're requiring for our AP biology.
Correct.
You're correct. We have students have moved into AP biology without that first year of biology and substituted it for biology. We have been reluctant to do that in chemistry.
Other questions? Microphone.
In the district. Your middle school students, depending upon their abilities, can start algebra, etc., before 9th grade.
Yes.
So that goes back to my earlier question: why can't we open up science, high school science classes earlier to the students that can handle it?
That would be a transportation.
I figure logistics, labs, etc., but
Certification issue, logistics issues. The first thing would be a certification issue. I can definitely speak to that. Other logistics.
Certification because the middle school teacher couldn't teach the high school class?
Yes.
Okay, but
a lot of our middle school science teachers are middle school certified.
Now I'm going to pull in collaboration. But with the technology implemented in the district, particularly between high school and middle school, why couldn't that high school teacher teach that virtual class to the middle school students in a classroom settings? Might not be able to do you have to watch your labs. You have to watch your labs per se, but.
Well, you said virtual class. You mean like through like a webcam?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent point. That would definitely be interested in trying that out.
Well, yeah, I think the district is comprised of a number of buildings, and what I liked about your presentation, you used the word collaboration, etc. I think what the district has to start doing is looking at itself as a virtual classroom, and not let the buildings constrain the learnings of the individual students in each building. Okay. Since it's your fault because you brought up.
I can speak to that in a couple slides. I only have a few slides left in the presentation, but I definitely want to address any additional issues with the progression chart. Any other questions? So the one issue, obviously, is biology, that Keystone exam. And one of the things that we didn't, I could just, sorry, I'm segueing. If I could talk about the fact that this Keystone exam is a point in a student's high school career where if they don't pass this exam, they have to be remediated. So it's very important that this is a state requirement, and if they don't pass the exam, they can't graduate. So one of the issues, another issue that we're dealing with now is how to remediate that, because the state says you have to remediate them, but they don't say what that remediation is. So a lot of ideas we're kicking around about how to do this, because next year it's got to be done. That's the first year that remediation for biology starts. So remediation here, and you know, obviously you can read this whole thing. This is how we classify a student as either being proficient, advanced, or basic. If they're proficient or advanced, then they can move on. They're able to graduate. They can take another class, and you know, unless they want to stay with biology and life science. But those basic and below basic students have to be remediated. So we have a two-prong approach right now, what we're working on, and that's the proactive approach. Now, maybe you'll, for those of you that are talking about ninth grade Earth and Space, maybe you'll enjoy this, maybe you'll have additional questions, maybe it's another big topic starter, but is to apply some sort of intervention to ninth grade rather than dealing with this remediation after the fact. So at the current time, ninth grade Earth and Space Science teachers are incorporating Keystone eligible content, that's biology content, into Earth and Space Science. So right now they are working on integrating the eligible content, which is the actual content that's on the exam, as best they can into Earth and Space, and that way they do get a head start onto that biology curriculum. That's a proactive approach. That's not remediation, though, and that's definitely not our remediation tactic. The reactive approach, which is the remediation, would be, the first part is to start to venture into online learning. Online learning that's not third-party online learning, but online learning that's housed within the school district. So rather than I'm taking an online class to get credit, this is a remediation course that we have control of here on the district. So it's a first-party online course, and this course would also be an open online course. So it's not just for students of the school district, but parents can get on and they can take a remediation course. People outside the district can take the remediation course if they're in Pennsylvania. It's something called a MOOC, and if you haven't heard of MOOCs before, maybe you have, but the ability for anybody to register for a course, do online content, collaborate with other students and teachers in an online fashion. And we would use this as a tool for remediation. That a student, this isn't an accredited course, but this is an online course that gives students A, experience in online courses, and B, a helpful tool for remediation that they can access at any time. So something we're working on has a reactive approach. Other school districts for remediation are maybe taking another approach where they're working with students individually on certain modules that they weren't proficient, and we still plan to do that on an individual basis, especially for students that aren't the self-starter type or maybe wouldn't be comfortable by themselves in an online learning environment. We do have that available for other students that would, but we would work individually with those students for that remediation. This is a very similar tactic to what other districts are doing. So it is part of a proactive approach, and a lot of people have raised concern about ninth grade Earth and Space Science. There are many, many conversations going on about how to better work with ninth grade science. However, we decide to do that, and your input is of great value. But right now, we're building in Keystone content for that curriculum. So the online component, again, we're looking at a MOOC format, massive open online course, where students would take a Pennsylvania Keystone biology course. But then again, we also want to make this open so that it is maybe a way that we can lead the pack in remediation. Maybe it's a way that we can use this to springboard onto our owned online curriculum, virtual curriculum, rather than do it through a third party. All right, and that brings me to my last slide, where I go over the circle again, and so we have a better example, a better idea of what our STEM education plan is. There's a lot of talk about high school progression, and that is incorporated in here. we can definitely make use of our professional learning community to get a better handle on how we progress through the later grades in secondary education. But other than that, that's my presentation. Thank you for spending your Thursday night. Thank you, Internet. Thanks, Internet. Hey! All right. Okay.
I know.
Russell, to address your question, I'm going to give her a second to read over it.
Yes, absolutely. It's been very difficult for us to be able to address the needs of students who attend tech and want a lab science course. We've really struggled with the logistics of scheduling that. This online course offers us a real possible solution to that. So absolutely, where they would be exposed to the same learning as other students who are in a similar situation or are here at school, participating in science via a different mode. Great question.